So when I was in middle school, I'm not gonna lie, middle school is around the age when I started hitting puberty. And hitting puberty isn't easy for anyone because obviously you start realizing things about yourself and you start, well, looking at things a different way, even if it leads to cherries. But before the story starts, make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Seriously, it means a lot when you guys do. And on top of that, if you guys do want crazy stories like this live, I'm currently live on Twitch streaming and telling crazy stories just like this one. But anyways, other than that, let's get straight to this crazy story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome to a brand new story time. So today's story, like I said earlier, starts off with me back in middle school. So back when I was in middle school, I never really did the Devil's Tango until I want to say grade 8. But before that, I'm not gonna lie, I started hitting puberty. I started looking at things a different way, and I started really looking at life in a new perspective. And let's just say I ended up realizing around that time that I was more of a cherries guy instead of a peach. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, you guys are probably too young to be watching this channel. But if you do know what I'm talking about, then you agree with me, right? Like seriously, comment down below. Which one are you, peaches or cherries? Anyways, going on from there, I remember basically when I realized I was that type of person, I remember one day when I entered my school after being dropped off, I ended up going to my classroom. When I got there, I realized that we had a new teacher. Except this teacher, she had a really snarky attitude. I don't know why. She was really, how do I put this? Honestly, I can't think of any other word than snarky. She would always make like really rude comments towards the students, and honestly, she wasn't funny at all. And I remember when I went into the classroom and sat down, I remember she ended up explaining, you know, her name was Mrs. L, and how basically she was going to be a teacher for us for only a little bit. Apparently, we needed a substitute because our original teacher had like a cold or something. I have no idea. But basically, she was going to be there for a couple weeks just to, you know, help us with teaching, I guess. I don't know. What else do substitutes do other than basically sit there and just teach? So I remember when we had her, basically, she ended up basically teaching us a lot about social studies and stuff because that was the class she was taking over. But also another thing about her is that she was really, really weird. Because in some moments, and I'm not gonna lie, in the most weirdest moments, she would kind of like say really weird things to us. Like, for example, she would talk about how she had randomly 3 different divorces, and it got to the point where she even explained how for some reason she would talk about how like her kids left her and stuff. I don't know, just really stuff that are really out of pocket, and that, let's be real here, no grade 7 should be hearing about in the first place. From there though, I remember basically the whole class started to realize that none of us liked her, so we kind of just started avoiding her all in general. She started realizing that, and then she ended up saying this really weird comment saying, oh great, so now all of you guys are leaving me? Like seriously, like who do you guys think you are? Okay, you're not my husband, you're not my ex-husband, and you're not also my children. Okay, I'm here to teach you, so grow up. Okay, is what I said afterwards. Because to be honest, I had no idea what to say to that. But then what ends up happening next was even more embarrassing. I remember the next day when I entered school, one thing I realized right when I walked into the classroom was that everyone, and I mean every student, was trying to sit towards the back of the classroom to avoid basically hearing her snarky comments and basically try to get out of her peripheral vision. Which, I mean, fair enough. I'm also a person that does this a lot in classrooms because I don't want to be seen by a teacher that doesn't like me. So I remember I kind of just tried to sit towards the back, but all the seats were taken, so I ended up sitting in the front of the classroom. Preferably, that's not the seat I would like to be in, but there was no other place for me to sit. I remember I sat down and I just ended up sitting there and kind of just made a promise to myself to basically avoid all eye contact, because there's no way I was gonna let this teacher look at me straight in the eyes and basically intimidate me till my life's done. And by the way, the reason I say this is because I'm gonna be honest here, in grade 7 my confidence wasn't like maximum until like I want to say grade 10, grade 11, so it makes sense in some sense. But going on, I remember when I sat down in front of the classroom and I was just waiting for the teacher to walk in. The teacher ends up walking in, but what she was wearing was, well, let's just say something that a teacher should not be wearing. She ended up wearing this really tight dress that was, well, red, and she started wearing red heels. She walked into the classroom, and I'm not gonna lie, I thought she was gonna film some sort of Devil's Hub video, because like this outfit that she was wearing definitely did not meet the dress code for our school. But at the same time, I always asked myself this, is the dress code also towards teachers or is it just students? Anyways, going on though, I remember basically when she walked in, the whole class, and I mean everyone in the classroom, started staring at her. We all started looking at her, and I'm not gonna lie, one thing I realized about her was that her cherries were popping. Like no joke, never seen before cleavage, just hopping out like no tomorrow. Like no joke, one jumping jack and they're out. Like I don't even know, man. Like you guys should have seen it. It was insane. So I remember when she walked in, a lot of the guys actually ended up going from the back of the classroom, moving up to the front to get a better view. And since I was already in the front, well, let's just just say I was already in the splash zone. Yeah, high five. I'm alone. Never mind. Going on. I remember as the class was going on and she was teaching us, all of us, and I mean every student was just staring at her cherries and her outfit. No one, and I mean no one was actually paying attention to what she was saying, because every time she would mention something or say something, she would point out a student and be like, okay, so Timmy, can you tell me what happens? And little Timmy's just gonna be staring straight at her going, oh yeah, like, you know, it was just pretty obvious that no guy was actually focusing on it. And it even got to the point where some girls in the classroom ended up just being super upset and leaving. Why did they leave? Well, no idea, but it will make sense later on in the story. But then for some reason, I want to say later on during class, I remember she ended up saying to the classroom, okay, class, so I'm gonna get one student to come up here and I'm gonna show you guys the way that basically they ended up dancing back then. I remember when she said that, she ended up looking directly at me, and me, I'm not gonna lie, I was looking straight at her chairs. I wasn't looking at anything else. And then she ended up saying, okay, Bubba, do you want to come up here? Huh? Yeah, sure, is what I ended up saying. So I ended up standing up and going up to the front of the classroom, and when I saw her, me and her, we ended up standing in front of each other, facing each other, and since she was taller than me, since I was a short kid in grade 7, my peripheral vision was directly, and I mean directly, straight to her cherries. I ended up just staring at her as she was dancing, doing this, I don't know, rain dance, I guess she was teaching about. I have no idea. And all I saw was just those cherries going up and down like no tomorrow. And yeah, that's all I was staring at. And honestly, one thing I will say is that she definitely knew I was staring at them, because right after she ended up saying, okay, Bubba, my eyes are up here. And right at that moment, I remember I saw her hand movement to, you know, do the, like that weird like 2-hand eyesight thing. You guys know what I'm talking about. And I looked at her and I'm like, oh, yeah. And then that's when she actually flipped out. She was super upset to that point where she said, okay, seriously, you guys are objectifying me as if you're my ex-husband. Who do you guys think you are? And right as she says that, I remember my principal ends up walking into the classroom that we had, and apparently he was called in by one of the students that was one of the girls from earlier that ended up leaving the classroom. He ended up walking in saying, okay, Mrs. L, I'm gonna need to speak to you outside, please. You know what's the funny part? 100%. My principal was checking out her cherries. There was no way he wasn't. But anyways, one thing led to another. He ended up going out the classroom with her, had a conversation about student dress code and how it basically does lead to teachers somehow. And how basically he said this word for word, you can't dress like a whore in school. Kind of crazy how that's being told to a teacher, but hey, what can I say? Back then, it is what it is. I think I've heard the joke of, you know, do you prefer peaches or cherries way too many times to count. Like, I'm gonna be honest, ever since I was a kid, like everyone would ask me like, oh, are you like a, you know, peaches guy or do you like cherries? And all my friends were always like, oh, we love the peach, man. Peach gang, whole lot of peachy. And in my opinion, like, I feel like that's a little different compared to me. Like, I was always a cherry guy. And today's story actually is based on, you know, cherries. And if you guys don't know what I mean by cherries, hopefully someone in the comments will, because if you don't, then you're just weird. But yeah, anyways, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another crazy story. So today's story is based on seeing my first pair of cherries. If you guys don't know what I mean by that, well, eventually you guys will. But honestly, I feel like this was a really cool story to tell, because a lot of people were asking, like, you know, like, oh, he just, you know, came out of the womb and just started doing every girl in the block. Like, no, that's not the case. Like, of course, I had to find some attraction to it. I think that's like every single person nowadays. And if you guys can't tell already, yes, I'm a cherry guy compared to a peach guy. And the only reason for that is because I feel like everyone has a peach, but not everyone has cherries. Anyways, so like I was saying, seeing my first pair of cherries was actually one of the best things in my life, I gotta say. Like, I'll never forget the day specifically, because like it was like not that long. Actually, well, it was long ago. It was like what, maybe like when I was 12, and I'm 20 now. So you guys could probably do the math right there, because I'm not doing it. But anyways, I remember when I was a kid, I had a friend, and his name we're gonna call Jackson. Okay, we're just gonna call him Jackson. His name's not actually Jackson, but we're gonna call him that. And me and Jackson were just good homies. Like, we always, like, you know, went to each other's houses and stuff, and it was just a normal day. Like, we were just homies. Okay, basic stuff. And me and Jackson, like, I remember, you know, he invited me over all the time, and I would invite him over. It's kind of like my other friend that I said in another story back then about how, you know, how close we were. But like, this was obviously a different person in a different time and era, because, you know, in a way, this was back in middle school or before middle school. I was 12. Is that middle school? I don't know. Anyways, I think it was like elementary school or middle school. And either way, like, you know, I never seen a human girl naked. I've seen human girls, obviously, but I haven't seen like one like to its fullest potential. How do I explain, like, how do I explain this? Let's just say at this time and age, I haven't seen a girl fully naked, you know, actually in that puberty state. I know girls hit puberty, but like they do it super early in the stage, so I don't know when it's considered like, oh, boom, woman Bam. You know, I don't know that transition from girl to woman. All I know is male. You know, anyways. So anyways, like I was saying, I remember one time I went over to my buddy's Jackson's house, and Jackson invited me over to play some video games. Obviously, back then, we didn't have, you know, the super Xbox 360. I mean, we had the Xbox 360, but it wasn't like a big thing, you know, at that time. So I remember we played actually on his like GameCube, I believe it was. I don't know. All I remember was that we were playing the GameCube. We were playing Super Smash Brothers. I remember I was rocking Luigi. He was rocking Kirby because Kirby's the easiest character to play on Smash Bros. And we were just doing our thing, you know, playing the game, having fun and all that stuff. Now, one thing I forgot to mention during the story is that my buddy Jackson had like 2 girls in his house. And no, not 2, you know, random girls. Like these are actually his family members. One of them was like his really hot stepsister, and his stepsister was like, holy cow. And the other one was his stepmom. So you guys can already kind of guess where that came from. Jackson told me this whole story about, you know, how his mom, you know, left and then his dad fell in love with blah, blah, blah. You know, I think we all know like the whole like parent story or whatever. It kind of just makes sense from me just saying the word stepsister and stepmother. And, you know, at the time, like I didn't really care for it. I didn't really acknowledge it whatsoever because it was none of my business. But I remember one time as we were playing Smash Brothers, I had to go to the bathroom. So I told Jackson to like pause the game and like said like, you know, basically wait for me to come back. You know, like I want to come and beat you in Smash Bros again because I was winning, just to stay to Jackson. And he was like, okay, well, if you're going to go to the bathroom, like make sure you guys use my mom's. Like my bathroom's kind of broken right now. It's clogged, which I'm not surprised of because I'm not going to lie. I remember every time me and Jackson went to the bathroom back at school, he would like fire up a storm in there. Besides the point. So I remember I headed over to his mom's room, and his mom's room was like a really nice room. Like she had like that modern looking room that I feel like mother has in a way. And when I walked into that bathroom, oh my goodness, I remember I opened that door. I went right through that door like a full-on man ready to take a giant waz, and right in front of me I see this girl. Now this girl was his stepsister, and this stepsister was bare naked right in front of me. And I remember I was just looking at her in her eyes, and she was looking at me in my eyes. And then I remember from my eyes I looked down more, and I saw them, the one and only amazing pair of cherries. Man, I remember I was like staring at him as she was just screaming my name, going, Arash, what are you doing? And I'm just like looking like, wow, that's what they look like when they're full on plump. And yeah, you know, as awkward that sounded just saying right now, and just, you know, totally going off memory here, that basically what happened. So I remember she was screaming and I was just staring her at her cherries, and you know, she was like freaking out. At that point I'm like, you know what, like this is good. I like today. Today's a good day. And she's like, what are you doing in here? And I'm like, bathroom right now. Like I couldn't even speak. I don't know. I don't know what happened to me. I just totally froze just staring at her knockers. Like I didn't know what to do at that time. And as she was like freaking out, I remember she like grabbed the like nearest towel near her and started covering up. And then as she covered up, I was like, oh, you know, like I was just totally being basic about it. And that's basically what happened. She just ran out of there freaking out, all that stuff. And then my buddy Jackson walks in and says, yo, what happened? And I'm like, dude, I got something I gotta tell you. So I remember he's like, wait, what happened? Like, you good? I heard my sister screaming. So me and Jackson went back to his room after he wanted to find out what was going on. And I told him, bro, your stepsister has some nice knockers. You know, I told him straight up, like, you know, he was my buddy Jackson. I didn't care. He was a homie. I'll never forget these words Jackson told me. And I'll always remember this to this day. And you're watching this video right now, Jackson, or supposedly called Jackson, I'm going to say. You probably know what I'm about to say here. I remember you told me this specifically, and this is for everyone to hear. He literally said to me, bro, I know I saw them. They're outstanding. He literally told me that back. And I remember the whole time as we were playing Smash Brothers, I was like, damn, dude, like that's so cool. And he's like, yeah. And we're just talking back and forth about it. And I remember his sister was like at the door just listening in, like, what are you guys talking about? And we're just like looking at her. We're like, nothing. It's Kirby. Kirby's big. Round, you know, he has eye. I don't know. It's just a funny situation. Make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe. If this video hits 1,000 likes, I will film a video shirtless. Why am I doing that? Can I even do that on YouTube? I can? Okay. Well, yes, I will film a video shirtless for you guys. I feel like people are gonna dislike the video now. Okay, anyways, continuing on. Okay, so you guys wanted me shirtless, and I am shirtless going to tell this story. What is the story called? How I milked her. And the fact that we're doing this right now is the most weirdest thing ever. But I'm gonna be honest here. You guys hit the like goal of 1,000 likes, so I guess I'm filming this video shirtless. And you know what? Since you guys like goals so much, if you guys get over 1,000 likes again in this video, I will have a girl sit behind me for one of the stories. She's just gonna sit there and look pretty. That way you don't have to always look at me. You can look at the girl that's gonna sit there. Like imagine this Boba Fett was a woman, okay? It's a woman. You guys saw nothing. We're going straight to the story now. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome to a brand new story. So today is a really weird one, especially since I'm shirtless, but at the same time, this story is one of the most weirdest stories ever. And before anyone says anything, I know what the title says, okay? I know it's called I Milked a Girl, but there's a lot more to it, okay? So I remember this started all off back in my grade 11 year. Now in grade 11, one thing I started realizing that was getting really popular throughout my school was teen pregnancies. Not that no girl wanted to be pregnant, it's just for some reason, girls have pregnancy scares, and sometimes those pregnancy scares lead to actual pregnancy. My opinion, guys, if you were planning to do the devil's tango, use a rubber or use some sort of protection. Just please, just do it. Anyways, going on though, I remember back when I was in high school, there were a couple of mothers in my school that were actual students. I know it sounds weird, but it got to the point in my school where they actually ended up having a nursery. Now, when they had this nursery, I remember a lot of people usually stayed away from the moms that were at the school because obviously no one wants to date a mom that also has a kid with her. That's like a 2-for-1 deal that you don't want. Like usually I like sales and stuff and, you know, good deals, but 2-for-1 with a mother and a baby, never gonna happen. So knowing that, obviously a lot of girls, what they decided to do was basically lie about having a baby. A lot of girls would say, oh, it's just like my baby niece that I have to take care of. Or usually I remember one girl in my class ended up saying that she adopted a child at such a young age. Don't get me wrong, that sounds super nice of her to do, but I'm gonna be honest, when the baby looks like you definitely didn't adopt the child. Anyways, I remember one time I decided to leave math class early just so I can go to the bathroom. And when I went to the bathroom, I remember I sat down in a stall in the bathroom and I ended up basically watching a YouTube video. I usually would do this to get away from math class because I hate math. I seriously hate it so much. But I remember I was sitting down watching Jacksepticeye on my phone and basically watching it with my AirPods in. But then afterwards, I remember smelling something really weird in the bathroom. And no, it wasn't my dump that I took. It was basically kids vaping in the bathroom. I don't know why kids like to do this, but if you are one of those kids that go into the bathroom and start vaping, I just want to tell you that you are probably the biggest loser on the planet. Like, I'm not joking. Do you realize how stupid you look when you hit a vape? Like, oh, I'm just gonna hit my vape here. Oh, hit my vape. You do realize how dumb you look, right? Like, if you really want to smoke something, smoke cigarettes, okay? Or cigars. Look like a real man when you're smoking, okay? Why are you smoking these little candy things, bro? Like, it's so gross. And I'm just gonna say this right now. If you vape, just know you are dumber than the average dumb kid. Anyways, going on though. Anyways, I remember these guys were in the bathroom vaping and they were basically having the most weirdest conversation to the point where I ended up taking out my AirPods. And that's when I heard one of the guys say, yo, bro, did you see that new girl's cherries, dude? Like, they were massive, bro. Like, holy cow, I just want to squeeze them. And I thought that was the most weirdest thing ever said. And even though I'm shirtless right now squeezing my own cherries, I will admit it is the weirdest thing ever said. To the point where I remember I ended up basically standing up and getting out of the stall saying, yo, what are you guys talking about? Now, some of these guys were shocked, but at the same time, it was bathroom talk. So I guess it doesn't really matter because between the guys, I mean, we talk about all things when it comes to the devil's tango. So, I mean, it was kind of the norm. Anyways, they were telling me how there was a new girl in the school that had these massive cherries. And obviously, if you guys don't know, me, I'm a big cherries guy, okay? I love cherries. Cherries are the best thing ever. Actually, did you know that if you prefer peaches over cherries, chances are you're gay. Just saying. Don't argue with statistics. If you're wondering why, just go watch me live on Kick. But going on though, I remember from there, basically, I ended up asking them about this girl. And I remember I made it my life's mission to basically go meet with this girl. Anyways, I remember afterwards when the bell rang and class was over, I ended up leaving the bathroom. I started walking around, basically trying to see if I could spot the girl with massive cherries at my school. And I remember right when I turned the corner to the cafeteria that was at my school, I am not joking when I say this, it was the first thing I noticed standing there. Like, this girl had bigger cherries than Mount Everest. Is that even possible? I don't know, but you guys know what I mean. Like, they were there, okay? To the point where I remember I decided to basically do the thing and walk up to her. But as I was walking up to her, I realized that she went and sat down and ended up going on the phone with someone on FaceTime. Now, at this point, I wanted to know who she was FaceTiming just to make sure it wasn't like a boyfriend or anything. So I ended up basically walking behind her. And when I looked over, I saw that she was talking to a baby and this old lady holding the baby. Now, at first I thought this was maybe like her baby sister or baby brother. I couldn't tell what gender it was, but it was definitely a baby. So at that point, I thought, oh, okay, she's probably single. So I remember after she hung up the phone, I decided to walk up behind her and say, oh, like, you're in my seat. She ended up turning around saying, sorry, like, I'm new here. I didn't know there were seats in the cafeteria. Oh no, I'm just joking. You can sit there. I just thought you were cute. And then from there, I basically started to rizz her up and we ended up basically talking. When we were talking, I remember I instantly got her Snapchat and me and her, we were having a really good conversation to the point where it was too good. Like, she wasn't like most girls that would say snarky comments or say something really mean. She had this like really caring, nurture feeling about her, kind of like a mother. And I remember I was really attracted to her to the point where, I'm not gonna lie, I told her, hey, like, I think you're one of the hottest girls at school. I'm not gonna lie, I pulled that line a couple times, but at the same time, the hottest girl at school usually changed. And knowing she was a new girl, it seemed like an appropriate time to say it. But going on from there, basically, I remember I was basically flirting with this girl for over a week. 1 week of me flirting with this girl. I think that's the most time I actually spent flirting with a girl. I'm gonna be honest here. Usually it takes me like 1 or 2 days before I get them to do the devil's tango with me. But a week was insane. But the thing is about her too, though, is that I actually did enjoy talking to her and stuff. To the point where I remember one time I decided to basically ask her out and say, hey, like, so like, do you want to like maybe like, I don't know, like go see a movie? I remember she agreed, and then me and her, we ended up actually going to the movies that day, and we were watching a movie that just came out. I don't remember what movie it was. I think it was like one of like a Marvel movie. I'm not really sure which one it was, to be honest, because it was so long ago, but it was back when I was in grade 11, so it was something probably cool. I have no idea, to be honest, because I wasn't focused on the movie. Because the whole time when we were watching the movie, I remember I kept looking at her cherries. Like, I'm not joking. Like, imagine like two people sitting in a theater, and you just go like, I couldn't control myself to the point where I remember after the movie, I decided to basically walk with her, and me and her, we got into a conversation that was, well, not the most mature of conversations, but basically me and her were talking about cherries. And when we were talking about cherries, I told her how my weakness was cherries, and me and her, we ended up going into my car and we basically started making out. From there, me and her started making out, and I remember she ended up taking off her top to the point where, I'm not gonna lie to you, I went in for the squeeze, and when I squeezed her cherries, it was the most weirdest thing ever because she ended up milking. Yeah. Now, I'm gonna say this. When milk is coming out of a woman, you guys gotta understand, chances are she had a baby. Or, sorry, not chances. She had a baby. So, I started realizing that that baby that was on the call with her was her baby. And when milk came out of her, I remember I was freaking out to the point where I'm like, whoa, what in the world? Because it got all over my dash. And, yeah, it was a really awkward moment. I basically told her how, you know, I think she's great and all, and it's not her, it's me. When in reality, it was definitely her, and it was definitely because she had a baby. Yeah, no, I'm not trying to father another man's child. Like, no. Just no. Yeah, I definitely gotta say it was one of the most awkward experiences ever. But I mean, I dropped her home and, you know, she understood, which was cool. But yeah, all I'm gonna say is that if you ever go for a woman with massive cherries, just make sure she's not a mom. Anyways, guys, that is basically it for today's story. Make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel. And if you want a girl watching me tell a story for the next video sitting right there, my opinion, press that like button. And like I always say, fall for more embarrassing stories. Peace out, guys.